At the Michigan SBDC Network, our mission is simple: to help businesses grow and succeed. Our consulting, training, and information services make it easier for businesses to reach their potential. Whether you're currently in operation or just starting out, we have the right tools, resources, and expertise to help you succeed. Visit us online to get started on your path to success today.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. And it also happens to be SBDC Day. What is SBDC Day? It's really a celebration of SBDCs from around the nation. There's over 1,000 SBDC centers across the country that help hundreds of thousands of businesses every year. At our core, the SBDC helps entrepreneurs who are looking to start businesses and those existing businesses that are interested in growing. This is the 5th year for SBDC Day, and this year at the Michigan SBDC, we are hosting 2 Facebook Live events called Ask the Consultants. I am really proud of the group of people that we have online today. They are experts in different geographical areas of the country or of the state, as well as in different segments. So today's Facebook Live event is really an interactive event that's intended to answer the questions that you might have. So I encourage you to put your questions in the chat. Now, one more thing about the SBDC, we provide these services to small businesses at no cost to the business. And so we help people like Greg. Greg was an entrepreneur looking to start a business, and he was a first-time entrepreneur. And so we helped Greg get his business up and running. And we also help people like Atlas Space Operations. We help them with specialized teams that help with technology and help with growth stage businesses as well. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Ed Gardner. Ed is the West Michigan Regional Director, and he'll be your host for this event today. So take it away, Ed.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, JD, and good morning and welcome again to SBDC Day. And this morning's session, what we're calling Ask a Consultant. It's also St. Patrick's Day, so I don't have any green on, but I know folks got some green on out there, probably in our audience. So we hope this next hour is going to be a little bit informative for you and also a little bit entertaining for you as we try to answer as many of your questions as we can about your small business concerns. If we don't get to everybody's questions, which we may not on air, we will respond to those questions off air, so we make sure we get everybody's questions answered. So keep just throwing them in the chat box. We'll get to you either on air or off air to get your questions answered today. So I want to put a fact out. Did you know that SBDC in Michigan has been around for over 35 years? Yeah, 35 years and about 40 years nationally. And currently we have over 100 full-time and contractual business consultants that can help you either launch, grow, innovate, or transition your business. So I kind of call this our 2 Legit strategy, spelled LGIT. Launch, grow, innovate, and transition. 2 Legit. Okay, now in just a moment, I'm going to introduce you to 9 of our top business consultants and managers across the state who have a lot of expertise in many fields. But before I do that, I want to mention 2 things before we get started. So the first thing is, many of your questions may be answered in our guide that we have. It's called a Guide to Starting and Operating a Small Business. Kind of looks like this. And we want to make sure everybody gets that guide. You can get that by downloading it from our website. And I believe it's available in a couple of languages. I know Spanish is one, but please get that guide. It'll answer a lot of your basic questions about starting and operating a business. No charge. We update it every single year, so we want to make sure everybody gets the guide. Then secondly, I want to reinforce that we do one-on-one business consulting for you. It's all confidential, it's all private, and it's all no cost to you as well. So the one-on-one business consulting, if we can't get to your question or if you have specific needs, and also to download the guide today. Great. So with that, I want to bring on our illustrious panel. So we got 9 great folks this morning. We're going to have 9 others this evening at 6 o'clock. But let me introduce you to the morning panel. So first up, from our greater Washington region over in the Ann Arbor area, we've got Ron Stevens. Ron is the Associate Regional Director for that region. And Ron happens to also be our SBDC State Star for 2020. How you doing, Ron?
I'm doing good, Ed. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
Great. Next up, we have John Smith. John is a senior business consultant out of our West region over in the Kalamazoo area. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Ed, and happy St. Pat's Day to everybody.
All righty, great. Hey, next up, we got all the way from the UP. We've got Lance Wolf, who's another senior business consultant in our Upper Peninsula region. Good morning, Lance.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Ed.
Great. Thanks for joining us this morning. Great. Next up is Harry Blancher from our I-69 Trade Corridor region. He's another senior business consultant with the SBDC.
Hey, good morning, Ed. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to today's discussion.
Okay, great. Next up, we have Jeff Punches. Jeff is a business consultant out of our Mid-Michigan region. Good morning, Jeff.
Morning, Ed. Thanks for having me.
Super. Great. Next, we have Diana Dimitrov. Diana is a senior business consultant out of our Southeast region over in the Detroit area. Good morning, Diana.
Good morning, everyone. Let's have a good Go Green Day.
All right, go green. You can't go wrong with that. Next up is Liz Hoffwell. Liz Hoffwell is from our West Michigan region. Once again, I'm the regional director for that region. Liz is one of our certified business consultants there. Good morning, Liz.
Good morning. So glad to be here and happy to answer some questions.
Okay. Yeah, let's answer some questions today. And our 2 final panelists is Bernard Drew. Bernard is a business growth specialist with our business growth team, and that's a statewide team. Good morning, Bernard.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Great. And then last but not least, we have Caio Ramirez. Caio is one of our technology consultants. It's a statewide group as well. And we welcome him to the panel this morning as well. Good morning, Caio. Okay, great. There he is. Okay, so that's your panel. So we got 9 great folks today that's going to try to answer as many of these questions as we can. Keep throwing them in the chat box. We're going to put up some live questions, but we have a lot of prepared questions that people sent in to as well. So I'm going to show you. Look at all these cards here. All these cards got questions on them. These are questions that you guys in the audience sent in that we're going to try to address today, as well as you can keep throwing them in the comment box, and we're going to show some of those as well. So what we're going to do, we're not going to take these in any particular order because this is an open format. So I'm going to shuffle these up a little bit. So let's shuffle these up, see what we get. So we're going to do it with the Forrest Gump slogan, where it says, life is like a box of chocolates. You might never know what you're going to get. So let's mix these up. Okay. All righty. Our first question is from Glenn. Glenn wants to know if he needs a license to operate his business, and particularly he's trying to open up a microbrewery. Wants to know if he needs a license for that, and can he get one prior to having a physical location. So does he have a physical location first before he gets the license? Can he get the license at a time? And where do you find out even if you need a license or not for any particular business? So I'm gonna direct that to Jeff this morning. So Jeff, do you have an answer for that question?
I am somewhat limited in this, but I know that if you're underneath a certain size as far as the production, you don't need to go through as many hoops as you would if you are a larger size brewery. I actually have a client that is doing something like this, and I'm in the process of working with them. But I'm going to defer this to Ron Stevens because he helped me with my client on this one.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. And I know John Schmidt works with a lot of breweries as well. Yes, you do need a license to operate a brewery. As far as having a physical location before that, yeah, you do, because you're going to have them come out and check that stuff out before they allow you to open up. And keep in mind that if you have a brewery license now, you do have to do all brewing on premises, which is basically been a change in the last few years. John, do you have some additional comments on that?
No, I think you pretty well covered that, Ron, that you do need a license, and you can go to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission and MLCC, and on their page, they have some excellent fact sheets on there. They'll basically walk you through the process.
Yeah, and I think they also have a search on there too. So if anyone is wondering if they need a license to operate a particular type of business, you can put that in there and it will tell you if you require a license to do that.
And there's actually a really good form, a checklist form as well. And, as consultants, a lot of times, we cannot provide you legal advice, but we absolutely can walk you through that application, because you'll see that within the question that was asked is a question on the application. And there's a sequence and a process. So.
Okay, that's great answers, guys. Great answers for that question. So the next question comes from Al. Now, Al wants to know, can the SBDC help with setting up a nonprofit organization? We know the SBDC stands for Small Business Development Center, but can they help also with setting up nonprofits? So Liz, I'm gonna direct that question to you. What about nonprofit sector? Can we help with that? Liz, we can't hear you. Are you muted?
Yes, I was muted. As I was saying, we generally do not help with setting up nonprofits. We certainly can answer questions, and with COVID, I've certainly worked with some nonprofits, but as far as setting up a nonprofit, I have not helped with that. Although we can help you, we can point you to the right resources to do that.
Okay, great. So once again, SBDC typically doesn't deal with nonprofits, but we can direct you to some sources for that. So great. So our next question comes from Martha. So Martha is asking about financing. So we know we're going to get this financing question. So she wants to know, are there any grants out there available to help start a small business? Any grants available to help start a small business? So let's turn to Diana. Diana, can you give us a response to that?
There are still some grants available. They're not as plentiful as they were prior to the pandemic, but a lot of them are local or regional or city-based. So it's important to reach out to your local business community to learn about those grants and opportunities. And then there are some national ones that are available for small business startup as well. But it's important to do your research and try and find out which one is the best fit, most likely for you to earn the grant. Anybody else have anything to add?
Okay.
It's Harry. Our experience, I'm from the Genesee County region and the Thumb region, and grants for startups are hard to get in our region. Grants for existing operations are easier. In our case, they are being funneled through our local Chamber of Commerce, like in many communities throughout Michigan. But money comes from the state, from the federal government to the state, comes down to the Chamber of Commerce, from the GM Foundation to the Chamber, and down, from Consumers Energy to the Chamber, and down. But for existing businesses at various stages, some are targeted for small businesses, minority businesses, women-owned businesses, but existing. For grants for startups are still very hard to get in our community.
Yeah, this is Ron in Ann Arbor. I'm going to piggyback on Harry with that. And that, generally speaking, if you're starting right from the very beginning and don't have anything as far as a business started, like he said, grants are pretty hard to come by. Most of the grant opportunities have been out even for COVID. You had to have been in business, I think, February 15th for most of them, prior to February 15th of 2020 to even be eligible. So, I would say call one of the local offices for the SBDC, and we can certainly talk you through that process and see if there might be something available for you.
So this is Kyle with the tech team. I say one exception to that. I'm sorry. This is Kyle with the tech team. One exception
go ahead, Kyle.
Is that a lot of the technology-based businesses, there are some R&D grants available. Again, those are competitive for the most part, so they take quite a bit of time to prepare for them and apply to them. But there are some options out there.
Okay, great. So it sounds like there's some limited options, maybe for startups, but it's maybe very specific. So, but in general, most grants for startup are really tough to come by. So great. So if we can't get a grant to start up, let's talk about loans. Let's stick with the money track right now. So what are banks looking for when you apply for a loan? Aston wants to know that. What are the banks looking for if I need to apply for a loan? So let's turn that one over to Bernard. Bernard, what are banks looking for?
I like to keep that real simple. A bank wants to know that they're not going to get left holding the bag. And so the better you can prepare them to know that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. A lot of that comes with being able to show a very clear track record of where you've been, what you're doing, and where you're going. And so if you've got a decent business plan, I don't profess that they have to be spectacular. I don't want you to overthink it. But that's a great start for being able to show the before, the during, the after. Same thing with your financial forecasts and your financial records. Can a banker look at your financial records and be able to say, I see where you've been, I see where you are now, and I can see your forecast for where you're going. And to the point that you can present those things that they can read, understand, and gather that from themselves without even having to talk to you. That's a candid, basic foundation. I think along with that, obviously, you want to make sure you've got your 5 C's in order. Some of the primary pieces are what's your credit like? What kind of collateral do you have? There's so many things that could be looked at. And I'm sure we've got some other members of the team that are here that can expound upon some of the other elements. But that's where I would start. If you're making preparation to apply for a loan, I hope that you've got an easy ability to convey where you've been, where you are, and where you're going.
Okay, great answer. Great answer. So you mentioned about business plan. So Tonette had a question here about business plan. Do you really need a business plan? And if so, what? So let me see who is a good person to answer that question. So Lance, why don't you jump in on that question? Do we really need a business plan? And what do you use?
Yes, you do. And I love what Bernard said. I wish I had him on a tape recorder, because that's what it's all about. Your business plan is your planning tool, your management tool, your feasibility study, and then it becomes your tool to communicate a request for financing. And the only way to do it is telling that story. I loved what Bernard just said. There's a history, and you have to be able to tell it narratively and then with the financials. One thing I would add too is a danger that a lot of people do is putting together financial forecasts that are just annually based. It's really important that when you write that business plan too, to show those financials month by month by month by month, and taking into consideration all the variables that have to occur in order for sales to come on. So I love that. There's a history with clients that are in business. That proof comes in your past tax returns, right? In your current sales and expenses. So Bernard's right on. I like that answer.
Okay, super. And certainly the SBDC can certainly help you develop your business plan if you don't have one, or we can help you develop components of your business plan. So if you need a person.
Ed, this is Harry. Just to kind of follow up on the comments. Business plans are made up of words and numbers, okay? A long time ago, a number of years ago, 20, 25, 30 pages was a typical business plan. Now it's a lot less. I encourage or tell my clients, don't be afraid of that. Nowadays, you don't have to write Shakespeare, is the way I phrase it to clients. You can kind of bullet point, responses to specific questions. All the templates that are out there in the world on the internet, et cetera, like this, have essentially the same 5, 6, 7 sections of it. They're all pretty much the same. Ours with the SBDC is set up on kind of a question and answer basis. Here's the question, type in an answer, question, type in the answer, and you can kind of bullet point it a lot more these days than back in the old days when you had to write Shakespeare. Right now, everybody's time is so valuable that the reviewers, the bankers, the credit union folks, et cetera, are thankful that you can be concise in your messaging and stuff like that. So picking up on Lance and Bernard's comments, yes. It's a lot easier, better than it used to be, words and numbers. Thanks.
And within those words and numbers.
Great.
I was just going to say within
go ahead, Lance, jump in. Go ahead.
As you talk within words and numbers within those sections, every time, for instance, you start with legal structure, there should all of a sudden, if you say it narratively, there's going to be somewhere in the numbers where that legal structure is going to cost you money. Right? So the numbers, the words, the numbers, back and forth.
Super. Great. Hey, let's take a live question from our audience here. So we've got one of our staff named Russell. He's kind of working the back end. Russell, do we have a live question that we can show on air that someone sent in? Okay, here's a question from Sue. She said, I'm a single member LLC. Can I use the EIDL to pay for my income taxes? Can I use it to pay for property taxes as part of my triple net lease? So let's go to John Smith. John, have you got a good answer for that?
Actually, I think I would defer this to Bernard. And it depends on which part of the EIDL we're talking about. If you're talking about, EIDL originally had grants that came out, $1,000 per employee, and then the actual loan itself. Regarding income tax, honestly, I'm not sure on that. Regarding property tax as part of a triple net lease, that would be eligible to be able to use EIDL, but I'm not clear on the income tax.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have a comment on the income tax? Can I use my EIDL? Now, the EIDL stands for Economic Injury Disaster Loan. It is a product of the U.S. Small Business Administration. So, Bernard or Liz, did you have a comment on can you use that to pay your income taxes?
I'm going to give kind of an open-ended answer that says it depends. And I would suggest there are certain interpretations where you can use the EIDL, quite frankly, for a lot of whatever you like to for the scope of your business. That's definitely an area where I would defer. You may want to touch bases with your CPA or accountant just to make sure that you're allocating the funds the best way. So it's not the most glowing response. That's the best.
And this is Ron. I'm gonna agree with John on that. I think you can use it as part of paying if it's part of your lease. I think you can use it for that if the property tax is part of your lease. But I do not believe you can use it for your income tax. So, but that's not to say that you can't use the EIDL money for its intended purposes and then use other money that the business is generating to pay the income tax. Then, right? So there's always that back and forth of which bucket the money's coming out of, and that's definitely something that we can take offline and talk about if someone has a more specific question or needs a better answer.
Great answer. Thanks, Ron. And if for those out there in the audience, if you have not applied for an economic injury disaster loan during COVID, you may consider that for your business. It's a great interest rate, a long-term payment there, and it's to help your cash flow to pay those ongoing month-to-month expenses. So contact your SBDC, get on a consultant. They can help you with explaining and applying for an economic injury disaster loan. Okay, great. So next question coming up is regarding patents. So John wants to know, he says, since a patent is a relatively long process, is there anything I can do to protect my product ideas from being used by other companies without my authorization? So Kai, I'm going to direct this to Kyle on our tech team. So Kyle, what about patents?
Well, yes, the answer is yes. So it's really all these questions. This question really falls within the rubric of what is called intellectual property. And there's multiple ways to protect intellectual property. You mentioned patents. Sometimes a patent might be appropriate. Oftentimes, we advise that because patents are a long process, as you mentioned, and also a very expensive process, you're looking to spend, all told, $20,000 plus on securing the patent, and then there's the enforcement cost beyond that, which could be significant. We often tell people that maybe they should rely on something that's called trade secrets, which is basically holding that information close, or at least holding the secret sauce close to yourself, so other people don't get that. And there's various ways that, if you speak with one of our consultants, you'd know, but that you can use to protect trade secrets. And very simply, it's limiting the people that have exposure to the idea, and being consistent in following processes that don't expose the critical parts of your technology or your patent to others.
Okay, great answer. Thanks for that. And I hope that answers your question on that. Okay, so the next question I got is from Trent. So Trent is a minority-owned business, and then it's also, women-owned businesses out there too. And the question always is, should I get a certification as being a women-owned or minority-owned company? Is that really going to benefit my company any? So Diana, why don't you take that question? And do the certifications really help?
Well, they can help. They can help when you're looking for funding or money. They can help when people are looking to promote minority or local-owned businesses. Just recently, Meyer put out information about getting local and minority-owned businesses to submit products to be carried in their stores. So having that certification puts you to the top of the list. If you want to do business with certain groups, government or state or local communities and municipalities, those certifications can make a difference. Anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, I could add a couple things there, Ed. I've had several companies who, but for the fact that they were minority owned, wouldn't have had interviews or even gotten their foot in the door with some large companies that they wanted to be suppliers for. So I agree that it can be a way to get your foot in the door with a particular company. But once you got that foot in the door, you still have to shine on your own.
Okay, great answers to that. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take a short commercial break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes to answer more of your questions. So we certainly want to try to talk about what's going on with the restaurant industry. We want to talk a little bit about social media and marketing and sales and some other great topics as well. And so stay tuned with us for this short commercial break. Put your questions in the chat box, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Well, my name is Avery Green. I am the owner and founder of House of Pariah, which is a sustainable fashion startup. I didn't start selling anything online until COVID happened. So I was getting ready to start selling. I was in the production process for doing underwear and basic stuff. And then everything had to be put on hold because of COVID. And so I pivoted and started doing masks. And so that was the first thing I started offering, was doing my mask, which is I think it was a good thing because it helped me step back, and now I've worked out kinks that I didn't know were there. So starting off with the mask and something smaller like that really helped me make my online presence stronger and my website stronger. The ways that I kind of decompress, right, is I'm so lucky to have a very supportive family. My parents are both very supportive of everything that I do. They back me up when I need it, and they are just always there for me. And I also have my boyfriend Jacob, I couldn't have done any of these things without him and like without his support. And I always recommend reaching out for help because you can't do everything. Like you don't have all of the skills and all the talents to run a business just by yourself. So if you feel like you're burning the candle at two ends, I would definitely reach out for help.
Great, and welcome back to Ask a Consultant. This morning's session with our 9 specialists here. Once again, this evening, we're going to be doing another session at 6 p.m. So join us there too as well as you can, or tell folks to join us at that time. Okay, great. Let's jump back into some more questions. And so we have a question about social media. So the question came from Cynthia, and she's trying to determine what's the best types of social media to use. There's so much out there, and to figure out what do you use, how much time do you spend with that in the social media platforms to help your business. So I'm direct this question to Liz. So Liz, kind of jump in and tell us what's the best types of
Yeah, so this is going to be, you're probably going to hear this a lot, right? The answer is going to be, it depends. It depends on what kind of business you have. It depends on who your target market is, right? So if you're marketing a product towards seniors, you don't need to be on TikTok, right? But maybe you should be on YouTube and Facebook. So that's something that, you can work with your SBDC consultant to start develop a business plan. Generally what I tell people I'm working with on social media is you really have to start out with at least 2. You want to have at least 2 that you're working with, and get really in depth with those 2, whether it's Facebook and Pinterest or Facebook and LinkedIn. It's really going to depend, like I said, on what your business is and who your target market is. I will say I always tell people you have to be on Facebook because Facebook still continues to dominate social media, even though there are all of these other ones out there, but it shouldn't be the only one you're on. You should be on at least 2, if not more.
Okay, great. Anybody else have a comment on that about social media?
One platform that's free, that's easy, that's really effective is your Google listing. In like Liz said, it's everybody's different, but a really soft, free, easy, sustainable one that's, with Google being the largest search engine and, they're the platform for everything. That's a good way to do it. And our marketing person helps everybody with that. It's a free way to have a great online presence.
Okay, great answers there. So our next question comes from Harold. So it's similar to the kind of the social media. So Liz mentioned about your target audience. You're trying to get to your target market. So the question is, how do I best determine what type of market research I need to determine the best customers to sell my products and services to? So let's answer Jeff that question. Jeff, do you have a good answer for that? So how's the best way to determine the market for my products and services?
Sure. I always tell my clients when they have that type of question is you need to do some customer discovery. And sometimes that's old-fashioned getting out there and talking to people who might be your potential customer. I've had a couple clients that have actually knocked on doors and talked to people or hung out in a grocery store and talked to people about their buying habits. And there's really no better market research than the old-fashioned customer discovery. So that's kind of the first step. Obviously it depends on what type of business, but I truly think getting out and talking to who your customers are going to be is a great first step. We also offer, different types of market research services too, but just finding out what your customer wants. But again, that good old-fashioned customer discovery.
Okay, super. Thanks, Jeff. And so he did mention that the SBDC does have a market research department, and we can do secondary market research for you at no cost. You would meet with a consultant to discuss your marketing needs, and they can submit that proposal. It's a often little used service that is really valuable to help you make business decisions. The SBDC market research. Do not forget that. Okay, great. So, hey, let's turn to a restaurant question. So, this is going to be for John. So I'm going to team up. So John, I've got a restaurant owner here. You see her name is Beth. And, she says she's doing okay, but still struggling right now due to, naturally the COVID and limitations on how many people you can have in your place. Is there any suggestions that you have and how she could improve her business operations during this time?
Oh, yes. Well, that's a multifaceted question. First of all, depending on, Beth, what kind of food you're serving, I suspect if you've been open throughout COVID, you're already doing the delivery game. You're already doing the carryout game. Now, we are up to 50% occupancy currently in the state, and the curfew has been passed to 11 o'clock. 50% is oftentimes kind of the benchmark for many of my restaurant clients in terms of whether they're able to not just survive, but to be able to start thriving. Also, what's coming down the pike, it was passed last week as part of the stimulus bill, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. This program is slated to open sometime in April, and what it'll be is it'll be a grant, and it'll be based basically your 2019 revenues minus your 2020 revenues minus whatever PPP loans you have. The amount that's left is the amount that you may be able to qualify for a grant. This program, the devil's in the details on a program like this, and the SBA hasn't come out with all of it. But some of the early word on this is that you're going to need to acquire a DUNS number and a SAM number. And that's something that you should try reach out to your local SBDC. Will help walk you through it. And also, as an organization, we're in the process of developing a short webinar that'll help people walk through this process. By the way, a DUNS number and a SAM number are free, but it's going to take a couple of weeks. So now is the time to start doing that. We don't know for sure if you're going to need this, but the National Restaurant Association, which is the major driver in this bill, is strongly recommending their members to acquire this.
Okay, great answer. So that new stimulus bill, I forgot how much it's going to be in there for restaurants, but definitely keep an eye on that and that short video that the SBDC is going to be putting together to explain it as details come out. You really want to make sure to apply for that. We know many of our food service businesses have been struggling during this particular COVID period of the last year, and we want to help them out as much as possible. And so, great.
$28 billion has been set aside for this. $5 billion is set aside for restaurants with $500,000 or less in revenue. In the first 21 days of the program, priority is going to be given towards women-owned, veteran-owned, and businesses in socially disadvantaged areas.
Okay, great information, John. You've seen some information flash on the screen, kind of a breakdown on how that new stimulus bill is going to work for our small businesses throughout the state and throughout the country. Okay, great. So our next question comes from Aston. Aston, this is a question regarding funding, another funding question. I'm going to direct this to Kayo because it has to do with angel investing versus a venture capital fund. So what wants to know what is the primary difference between angel funding and venture capital funding?
Okay, well, that's a great question. They're very similar, but they're also different. I think sort of the main differences will be this. Let me step back for a second and give a little bit of background, because when we talk about angel investing, we can talk about everything from, a single individual that investing in or willing to invest in a company. And on the other hand, you have very structured angel funds that are very similar to a venture capital fund. But with that being said, the biggest difference are these. The venture capital funds are generally much more structured and professional. They have a very structured process that they follow. They usually will invest larger amounts of money. And for the most part, they have very focused areas that they look at. So if I'm a venture capital fund, I get my money from something called limited partners, LPs. I have a document that between myself and those LPs that tell me what I can invest my fund monies in. So for instance, you'll have venture capital funds that all they invest in are green technology. You have those that invest only in med tech. And you have others that are a little, have a little more generic, but generally think larger amounts of money, much more structured process, and probably more selective.
Okay, great. Hope that explains a little bit the difference between those two funding sources, particularly for advanced and high-tech companies. So I'm gonna direct the next question to Ron. So Ron, this company wants to know, I think the question is from, let me look here, it's from Steve coming up. And Steve is really trying to grow his business. And he's wondering, what kind of things does the SBDC have that they can help develop or grow their business to get to that next level? What would you suggest?
Oh, wow. Pretty open-ended question as far as the things that you can look at. I mean, especially right now, we're seeing a lot of companies where they're looking at different pivots, right? So they may have been servicing a particular area that isn't necessarily panning out for them anymore. So we are doing a lot of pivot discussions and looking at new markets. Depending on the type of business this is, and that's why it's kind of an open-ended question, there's certainly opportunities in doing exports where we see that, more and more businesses are being able to diversify their situation if they have some sales activity outside of the U.S. Generally speaking, those types of businesses that do that, whether recession's much better, they're generally more profitable, and they generally create better jobs for their employees as well. So again, depending on the type of business, you could certainly look at growing through exports, doing pivots and looking at new markets are all things that we can definitely help through the SBDC. We do have a pretty big research department within our organization where if you're looking at different markets, we can help do some of the research, especially if you're going to be looking at, different industries or other things like that. And even coming up with customer lists might be an option for you to call on directly. So we can certainly help in a lot of different ways, but Ed, it really is going to depend on the type of business that we're talking about and what their capabilities might be.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ron, for that answer. So the next question I've got comes from, let's see who we got here, from Phyllis. Actually asked a question here. It's in regards to really phasing down your business. So I'm going to direct this at Bernard. So the question is, Phyllis wants to maybe sell her business in a couple of years and get out, maybe retire. Not sure if she wants to just close it down or just try to sell it outright. But what type of things she's asking, what type of things should she be looking at over the next few years to set herself up to either sell or close out her business? So Bernard? There he goes. Go. Okay, Bernard.
Right.
Did you hear the question?
I did. That's a phenomenal question. I have to say that I celebrate anyone that is planning ahead in advance enough to consider what does my exit strategy look like? What does my exit planning look like? And so for any business owner that's tuned in today, I encourage you at some point, as much as you love what you do, you're passionate about it, you're excited about it, the day will come where you're going to desire to do something different. And the better you can plan in advance, the more you'll be able to enjoy whatever the next season is. And so in all candor, a lot of that's going to come down to the wonderful question of what's your why? And I think if you start from there and work backwards, what's awesome within our growth team, I have the privilege of learning from some great folks on our team, like Brooks Kendall, Dale Anderson, who have a very specialized niche in exit planning. A lot of it's going to come down to what do you want to do at the end? Estate planning, financial planning. How are you building or closing out your business now so that your financial position when you do sell is in a position that it actually allows you to do what you're hoping to be able to do. You'd be surprised the number of people, but you may not be, that spend years pouring their hearts, their lives, their everything into growing the business that they're passionate about. But then you go to sell it and it's not structured in a way that makes it as attractive to the next buyer, where your passion may not show up on a balance sheet. And that's really what they want to be able to see in order to be able to make this a good financial decision for them. So we'll get a chance to, if you've got more questions, to delve in deeper. But definitely a lot of your estate planning, your financial planning, understanding your cash flows, and knowing that you've got a solid system in place, that you're not just passing on a name and a business that can only run with your engagement, but you're actually passing on a residual revenue stream that has its own management systems, checks and balances in place that the next buyer and operator can also experience that same gain. So much more that could be discussed, but that's a big scope. And as has been said, you're more than welcome to reach out for consultation, because every case has its own nuances, and we're here as a network to be a support for your needs.
Great. Thank you for that answer, Bernard. Once again, that's in that transition phase. Remember the two legit. So that's the launch, grow, innovate, transition. So if you're in that transition stage, we can help you as well. We're going to take another short commercial break, and then we'll be right back after this to answer some live questions from our audience. So stay tuned and join us back in a couple of minutes.
My name is Kelly Osborne, and my husband Troy and I have more companies than children, and that's saying a lot because we have 5 kids. We own companies all the way from engineering firms to property management to corporate catering companies, and we actually started a whole new company during COVID, literally the week COVID hit. So talk about taking advantage of an opportunity. We start companies simply for the focus of workplace engagement and organizational health. We believe that innovation comes from limitation. So we did not want to waste this crisis. We wanted to gain some muscle from it. It's all how you seize the opportunity. And I don't want to take that lightly. I don't want that to sound ostentatious of us, but there is opportunity and you do have to dig for it, especially if you want to survive, right? What we did quickly is partnered with some of our previous clients like Covenant Hospital. They rolled out an initiative to support small restaurants and businesses and caterers. And we joined forces with them, and we were taking over twice a week huge quantities of meals to Covenant healthcare workers. It kept our employees going. We were allowed then to file for the PPP and use it. It was such a great relationship during that time. I mean, we became so innovative. I mean, we're a corporate caterer, LPGA, NBC, big, huge events like that. There are none. A beauty of being an entrepreneur is that you can pivot, you can adjust. We are so nimble as entrepreneurs that we can quickly change gears and realize, wow, I mean, even Nestle Toll House cookies were made through limitation. They didn't have the right ingredients. And look, we've been making those for probably 100 years now.
Great, and welcome back to Ask the Consultant. We've got about 15 minutes left on the top of the hour, so we're going to try to take as many of your questions as we can in these last 10 minutes. And so we want to start out this last segment by putting up some live questions that's been coming in from our viewers. So Russell's in our back room there. Russell, can you put up one of our questions that have come in since we've been talking? And we'll take that question. So let's see. This is from John. John said he's starting a new business because he's lost his job. Can individuals with a PPP, that's a PPP financing or something like that have lost their income and were a free agent or lost their job due to COVID-19? So they're asking, can individuals who lost their jobs, can they get a PPP loan or some other type of financing, maybe to start a new venture? So let's jump into Harry. Harry, have you got a good answer for this question?
I'm not sure about good answer, but I'm inclined to think that PPP financing is a no, because it's for existing businesses, generally speaking, or something like that would be idle financing. And so that's a possibility. Now, again, SBA, if you want to just, think about that agency, has regular existing programs, 7A, 504, other SBA programs that are more well-suited for starting new businesses, et cetera, like that. And then, of course, banks and credit unions are still in that game as well. So, I would work with your SBDC consultant to kind of explore the range. I mean, here in the Flint, Genesee County area, there's things called KIVA, which is crowd-based funding for small amounts of money, up to $15,000, 0% with crowd-based funding. So they have locally that there's that KIVA program. So every community would have, in all likelihood, some particular programs. We've got CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, that are associated with nonprofits that will work in the space that you're in, it sounds like right now. So no to PPP, yes to other forms of all sorts.
Okay, great answer. Thank you, Harry. So let's take another question from the audience. Have we got another live question that we can show? So this is from Jackie. She said, I'm starting an IT company, but I am unsure if I should register my company as a DBA or an LLC. Can you explain the difference and which one would be best for an IT business? So Diana, let's go to you to answer this question about starting an IT company and which is the best legal structure.
Well, right now, the most frequently used and most flexible legal structure is the LLC, and it's flexible in how you are taxed. The DBA portion is not really a legal structure that carries as much weight. You still have to determine what structure the business is, whether it's a sole proprietor or whether it is some other partnership or some other structure. So the easiest way, and that would provide you flexibility for the long term, would be the LLC. It's $50 to register an LLC in the state of Michigan. It is an easy process. When you're ready for it, we do have workshops that you can watch that are online, or live workshops you can attend that help you kind of go over the basics of how to start an LLC and things to watch out for and things to be concerned about.
Okay, great. Thanks, Diana, for that.
If I could add really quickly to that.
Yes, go ahead.
So as was said, a DBA really isn't a separate legal entity. An LLC is. And one of the real important things that an LLC affords those that have it is protection of their individual assets. So long as the corporate formalities are adhered to, the LLC is a separate legal entity. So if, God forbid someone decides to sue you, or your individual assets can't be attached.
Great, thank you very much. Super. Do we have another question from the audience? Another question from the audience that we can show? Okay, great. This is another kind of legal structure question. What is the fastest way to apply for my LLC? The fastest way. So Liz, what's the fastest way to apply for an LLC?
Yes, so you would go to LARA, which is on the state of Michigan site, and you can apply for your LLC right online. And it's one of those things, like I tell my clients, I've helped many people register their LLC. It's not a really difficult process, but it can be really confusing. So like, for example, I'll walk through for my clients, I walk through the process with them so that if they have different questions as to what questions they have to answer, which ones they don't have to answer, kind of making sure there are some there's just a few little tips and tricks that your SBDC consultant can help you with as you're registering. But you can register online, and you'll have your LLC within generally 2 weeks. So, but the process itself, it's about 10 minutes to go through online. And like I said, any of your SBDC consultants can help you with that process.
Could I add one thing?
Liz, do I? Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, if I could just add one other thing too, because this is great the way we're touching this legal structure here is when you look at it too as a sequence, once you make that decision, say you're going to be an LLC, then your next step is your employer ID number. We can help you with that. You can get that online free the same day. So don't spend $200 on it. And then your next step is going to be, do I have to register with the Michigan Department of Treasury? And then of course our licensing. And that completes, and then you open up a separate banking account, and that completes your whole sequence. And like Liz said, we'll walk you through that whole process.
Okay, great. So what I'm hearing from both Liz and Lance, it sounds like you really may not need to get a lawyer or a third party to do this. This is something you can do on your own. Is that what I'm hearing?
Certainly.
If you've already made the decision to register your LLC, especially now that we're all working with Zoom meetings, I can get on a Zoom meeting with someone and help them as they're typing it right into their computer, and we're sharing screens and answer their questions as they go. Yeah.
Okay.
Do not need a lawyer to register.
And this is Ron. I just wanted to add real quick. There was a part of the question was quickly. You can pay an extra fee to have it expedited quickly. I believe that's right on the form. So that you can do it if you need it really quick for whatever reason. But my experience is it generally doesn't take that long actually for them to send you your information back and saying that you're all set. So
right, if you pay an extra $1,000, you can have it within the day. So just depends on how quick you need it.
Now, having said that, this is Harry. I've helped a person. They paid the extra $50 to get it, and they got it the same day. So you can do that via Zoom with your client, with your consultant and stuff, and it can happen really quickly. $50, an extra $50, same day.
Okay, super. We're going to try to sneak in 1 or 2 more questions from our audience. Next question from the audience, please. Okay, this is from Susie. She said, what is the difference between a marketing plan and a business plan in terms of projections of a specific dollar amount? Difference between a marketing plan and a business plan. So let me see, who hasn't spoke up recently? Let's go to Lance. Go ahead and take that. Difference between a marketing plan and a business plan.
Me? Lance?
Yes, Lance.
Well, a marketing plan is a component of your business plan. And like we had kind of alluded to earlier, within your financial numbers, we have a marketing plan, a marketing budget, signage on the building, Facebook boosts, your website. So those are all marketing costs, right? But the marketing plan is a component, a section of the business plan. And again, it's reflected in the line item, marketing, promotions, advertising in our accounting and bookkeeping.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. And let's get in one final question from our audience. Okay, great. So this is from Shyla. She wants to know, who should I talk to at the SBDC regarding listing my business on Google? So I'm trying to figure out how to get a good Google listing. So let's jump into John. Have you got a good response for that about the Google stuff, or is that one other panelist answer?
I would throw that to I would say go to Google, but.
Oh, okay, great. So we'll jump in. So anyone else on the panel got a good answer for getting on Google, a Google listing? Just jump in.
I have an answer for that one, at least to start
Go
out
ahead,
with.
Liz.
First of all, one of the other panelists talked earlier about actually doing a Google My Business listing. And so most of the SBDC consultants can help with that, or at least there should be someone in each of the different regions that can help with that. As you've seen, probably we all have our different areas of expertise here. So, I think really any of the consultants can at least point you in the right direction. Google has some really, really great training modules too that we could send you to as well. But again, with me, I generally will walk my clients through that during a meeting, how to get set up their Google My Business.
Okay, great, fantastic. So I think that about concludes our time for this morning for this session. Certainly we didn't get to all of the questions. Once again, we'll do those offline if you send a question in. We really want you to join us back at 6 p.m. If you can. We're going to try to answer a bunch more questions on how to hire employees, questions how to turn your side hustle into a real business, questions about cybersecurity. Man, there's just a ton of questions out there. So feel free to join us back at 6 p.m. from 6 to 7. We're going to have a different set of consultants with you at that time to answer more of your business questions. We thank you so much for joining us for this session of Ask the Consultant. We want you to have a great day. This is SBDC Day. What day is it? It's SBDC Day. And it's also St. Patty's Day. So enjoy, and hopefully we'll see you back at 6 o'clock. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.